Yeah.
Did you?
Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you and welcome, everybody. So nice to see you all here tonight. We do have a scheduled audience to the public, which is Jan Cervona. And I think, Mike, are you with her?
I'm supporting her.
Support staff? Okay.
Okay.
Welcome, Jan.
I'm here to talk about the Bicentennial, which all of you are familiar with, and how our schools and our historical societies working together to have plans for the Bicentennial activities. And both historical societies have plans in each of our communities, but we also wanted something that could bring us together, and usually you start at the bottom and work up. But for some reason, our district was really ahead of the game when they built this high school, because they worked with both historical societies and put together the best history you're ever going to find. And I don't think the communities are aware of it. And so in talking to Mike, we talked about the fact that the bazaar is coming up, Christmas bazaar, and we could use a theme of eat, shop, and take a walk. An historical walk through the halls of our high school to see the history of both of our towns. And it takes the whole bicentennial, talks about where our town started and goes through. So we'd be looking to have some of our historical members, some of whose names are on the plaque out here already that starts that walk of Elliott and South Berwick joining together. And so we think that that is the best way to sort of have us be able to highlight our individual towns and yet show how it brings together at this level, the whole idea behind it. The other issue that we have, or the other event that we think brings both our communities together, is that, and here again, it's the high school. When they get to April, they have a special day where the freshman class comes and does their community service at public buildings in both towns. It's also a great way for us to start publicizing the fact, let's join our freshman students and let's be good neighbors and bring out good neighbors in both our towns, because we've gone through the winter, a lot of things going on, and sort of helping our neighbors. So I think we can spread those two messages, which bring the Bicentennial together for all of us.
Wonderful.
I think
Awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. Thank you so much.
And Jan has been on this for the last 6 months, so fantastic. So thank you for all your work.
That's wonderful. Thank you for bringing that to us. Now, is there going to be publicity about that
Well,
prior
I mean,
to the Bazaar Day?
My idea of coming here
Mhm.
was that would start publicity
Okay.
in one direction. We'll start publicity through the fact of our own, because we have a website, they have a website. I think there are lots of different ways that people get their information, and I'm hoping you'll talk about it, and I'm hoping any way we can, we'll publicize that as happening. I think that's the new thing. And I guess I would want to give one shout out to Mike, in the sense that if you look at his grandmother is who wrote up all the history that I learned about with the schools of Elliott. And she did it in a much different way. She had to read everything, research everything. There's so much out there that we can, and to then work with Mike on this level, sort of brings it back to a different space. So
And we plan on maybe having some seniors that can do some community service. They can come in and help with the tours here on the Bazaar Day.
Yeah.
Also on Community Service Day, it could be a combo. We could also hit some historical places, which we have in the past. We've done cemeteries, we've done a lot of the public places, but we'll try to maybe hit some of the historical places also around on that day, so.
Great. Well, we'll make sure to remind everyone on the agenda for the next 2 meetings. So hopefully that will help a little bit. So thank you so much for taking the time to come out and talk to us. All right. The next thing is the report of the secretary, and we are going to have to table the minutes to the next meeting because Matt and Paul and Lisa are not here, and Matt wasn't at this meeting. So So I'll move right on to my report. The next town officials meeting is November 13th. I think it's Paul, but I'm not 100% sure. Is it you?
It's not me.
It's not you, and it's not you, right? Okay, so
It's
I think Paul is gonna go to that one.
He wins by default.
Well, I think he was, I was trying to do it from memory, but I'm pretty sure it was Paul. Joe or Matt, is there any way you could do the one in December? I said I could, and I have a conflict. I can tell you the date, and then I'll be happy to take January. If either of you are free, if not, somebody can do it again. I think it's the 11th,
That sounds right.
December 11th. Yes, ma'am.
Did you want to change December 11th?
Why? Well, are we changing?
It's at the superintendent's office and you'll be away. Conference.
Oh, at the Alice training.
Oh,
Alice
okay.
training, yeah, okay.
So maybe we'll change the
Yes,
date?
yeah, that would be great, actually. That's the school safety training. that,
Oh, okay.
3 of the police officers, myself, will be doing, led those 2 days. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Elaine.
Yes, thank you, Elaine. So maybe could we change it to the 18th?
Yeah, I'll reach out to them tomorrow just to get a confirmation of what.
Okay, that'll be a busy day. We've got policy, school board, and,
At the trifecta.
yeah,
Yeah.
which,
Finance too.
which I
Yeah.
think I still will need to change that, because I'll have to leave early from work for policy, so I can't come in late, too.
I think I can probably cover the
Okay.
December
We can
18th.
circle back to that, just in
Sure.
case, but that would be.
Pencil me in.
Okay, thank you, Joe. And then I'll start with January, or Matt, we'll start over assigning them in January. All right, thank you, John, for taking care of that. The next thing is the report of the MSMA conference that John and I went to. We each did 3 sessions, and I think we just want to give you a little bit of a recap of what we did. Is that
Absolutely.
okay?
Yeah.
You want to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first session that I attended was regarding school safety, and so a lot of the work that we're doing currently is around the ALICE training. I'm just trying to create more of a curriculum around helping our students and creating a safer environment. And so that talked a lot about the facility itself and how to harden the facility is kind of the term that they use. So it was very timely for us, just kind of some things that are out there that we can look at kind of as a district. One of our plans over the next year or so is adding video cameras to a lot of the schools in different places. And so that will be one of the things that we'll look at as well, which they talked about quite a bit about. The second one was regarding looking at test scores from across the state, and then also kind of looking at under the lens of economic disadvantage, ethnicity, and being able to look at that and be able to disaggregate that data. Which really kind of give you a different lens to be able to look at what you're doing amongst your schools, and which was excellent. And the last one was really timely and interesting, was around kind of legal matters that take place outside of the school. And so in the past, 10 years ago, if an incident would take place, particularly around cyberbullying, let's say, that took place outside of school, the schools used to be able to say, like, that's outside of school, that go to the police department to be able to handle that. But those lines have become very gray now. And just getting some legal advice around how to handle that, and just really be able to work with our local police departments. So tomorrow, actually, as a result of that, I'm meeting with Lieutenant Burbank to talk a little bit about kind of how do we communicate together if there's an incident that takes place outside of school but does trickle inside the school. So how do we make sure we're giving parents all the information from the school's perspective and also from the legal perspective of the police department, making sure that we give the parent kind of the whole picture rather than just the police department or the school part. So it was excellent.
Perfect. And I went to 3 as well. The first one I went to, and I apologize for the phone, but that's where my notes are. I forgot my notebook that day. So the first one I went to was Maine Spark was the presenter, and they were talking about the initiative to get 60% of Mainers by 2025 to have educational credentials or workforce credentials. She talked a lot about CTE students and just how everything is coordinated together. It was an okay presentation. I would say I learned a little, but I not a lot, to be honest with you. So, and then the second one I went to was the kind of the piggyback on the one John went to in the morning was about how to make the schools safer, and I went to how to figure out if something is a threat assessment, if somebody is a threat. And they basically, it was that you can't figure out who's the threat, that you really, the counter to that is to have students feel included and, checking in with them morning and night, and just, to think of it as there isn't a profile, but if you get everybody more involved and more active and more engaged in school, that's how you prevent the threats. So that one was very interesting, and the speaker was fantastic. He was very, very funny. And then the last one I went to was put on by Drummond and Woodson, which really you can't go wrong. And it was talking about software and how to protect student and staff privacy by software that is downloaded in the classrooms. And he gave different tips about, having different processes and stuff to make sure that we're filtering technology, to make sure that the student information nor the teacher information is getting places that you don't want it to get. So, and then we also heard the keynote speaker was the president of Chimbro, and he was very interesting, talking about the safety of Chimbro and how it has progressed over the years and how they were really at the forefront of a lot of the safety. I would say that overall the conference wasn't as great as in other years, I think. We got nothing for you. There were no fun gifts at all. There was no fun goodies at all. John and I were walking around with like, do they want a pencil?
Shopping bag, exciting stuff.
Like, no goodies.
Yeah.
But I really am thankful to MSMA for putting it on. The information was great. I don't think it was as well attended by either vendors or school board people or superintendent, so maybe that was the difference in the feel. It just felt a little not as exuberant, not as, I don't know what to say.
Engaging.
Yeah, it wasn't as engaging as in the past, and that may have to do with the numbers of people who were there. But as always, we come back with something good, some good information, so it's well worth the day.
When it's good, it really makes you think about things a little bit differently, whereas
Yeah.
this was a little bit more reactionary of kind of like, this is what you can do, as opposed to, like, here's some great ideas, why don't you try this? And so this was kind of more of the, hey, if this is a problem, this might work for you. So if you have a problem and it fit, it could be very good. But like to say, presentations themselves are not super, super exciting.
Yeah. And I miss talking to other school board members. There was no interaction in any of mine. So, I said the best part of the day was the ride up and the ride back, because we got to talk a lot about, got to talk a lot, and that was nice. But I did miss that interaction with the other school board members. I think that's always been a fun part of it, and I guess I just picked the wrong ones for interaction. So, anyways, the last thing on my agenda is to congratulate Mr. Joe Long on his election last night.
Stunning upset victory over a blank ballot.
Over blank. Yep, it was a close race between Joe and blank. Joe pulled it out. So we're very happy to have you here for another 3 years, of course.
You're stuck with me for 3 more years.
Thank you for doing it. I appreciate it. And that's it for me. John.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I just first want to start off talking a little bit about the Veterans Day celebrations. We most recently had our first celebration at the middle school this past Friday. It was well attended as always. A great group of people. Again, the staff does a great job of putting kind of a program on, and just the feedback that we get from the veterans is just phenomenal. On this coming Friday, we have both the middle school, with the Great Works School and Elliott Elementary School taking part in their celebrations. And so one's in the morning, one's in the afternoon, which is perfect to be able to go to both. And the part that I really enjoy is that they're all a little bit different, and they put a little different spin on it for each one of the buildings, and it's really age appropriate. So I just think it's a great opportunity. I can say resoundingly, though, going to any of the celebrations, you really hear the thankfulness of the veterans of just taking the time to say thank you and be able to recognize the veterans and the first responders. It is heart-tugging, I will tell you, to see the World War II veterans. 10 years ago, there was probably 20 people there, and in this past year, there was, I think, 2 or 3 at the middle school, and just seeing them with all their might getting up and standing up and be recognized, it just really means a lot. It means a lot to them, and just it's a special occasion. But we're that greatest generation. We're starting to lose those people more and more and more. So it's that history to be able to pull them in and get those stories. And Mike Zamarki a few years ago did that project where he kind of went and interviewed World War II veterans and was able to record that kind of keep that history. Which was a great idea. So that was a wonderful part. But I look forward to Friday celebration. I did also want to mention that Ann Schlissler is doing a little bit of work with Youth Across America. Where they'll be going for a presentation at the Kittery Trading Post. And we've been able to arrange some transportation to be able to support her in her endeavors to do that. So that's another part, kind of recognizing the veterans, which is just a neat story in itself. So thank you to everybody for taking the time to do that.
It's always cool to see the semis.
Yes.
If you're on 95 at the right time. It's very cool to see the semis go by.
I didn't realize, but the actual farm where they do that, they put dog tags on the trees to kind of mark the trees for the different veterans. And so you can hear, like when you go there, you can hear the dog tags in the wind.
Oh, I didn't
and so
realize
they don't
that.
cut the trees down. They actually prune the trees to be able to build the wreaths. So they, I think it's every 7 years that they're able to kind of build another wreath for each one of the trees. So there's kind of this growth and this rebirth piece, which is just for the survivors, the people who go through the hospital. It's so powerful. So the 6th grade at the middle school did a nice little slideshow. It was really kind of neat. But I never realized that. So it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So next on the agenda is our elementary reading program, and we have just been doing a ton of work over the last couple of years, and we have a great group here tonight to kind of share with us some of the work that they've been doing. And so I'm going to turn it over to Heidi, who is our director of curriculum, and brought a bunch of people to share some show and tell with us.
I
So.
did. The less I have to talk, the better. Let's see. Is that a Chromecast or Apple TV on there? Yes.
Gotcha.
So while Heidi's setting up, we'll introduce ourselves. Sarah, you want to start?
Sure, I'm Sarah Alice. I'm the literacy coach and reading teacher at Great Brook School.
I'm Pam Mulcahy. I'm same role at Central Elementary School.
And I'm Jennifer Cram, and I'm the literacy specialist at Elliott. So thank you for having us.
I just can't tell you what a pleasure it's been for me over the last 2 months to be able to sit down and meet with all of you and work with you. We have just such a gift in elementary schools with our coaches and interventionists, and just the passion they approach things with, and the use of data, and really it's kind of setting a tone for the district. So just as a sidebar, thank you all very much for everything that you do. So
We love what we do.
yes, yes, yeah, that's clear.
All right, let's take this disclaimer. Oh, saying something.
Beautiful picture.
Of nothing. I mean, it's obviously something, but it's not.
I always wish that they would put where the location is.
Yeah.
I wanted the superintendent's office to pictures that I'm going to go there, but I don't know where it is.
It is.
There you go. All right. So the motivation behind the presentation tonight really came from you all as board members. Just, I believe it was Lisa that asked about flex reading at Elliott, and another person asked about the summer reading program. And so we really felt as a group that it would be best, rather than singling out individual approaches, to try to give you a sense of the whole K-5 reading instruction picture and how we think about it. I mean, fundamentally, reading it's the keys to the kingdom, right? It's the thing that we believe is foundational to almost everything else that we do. So we put a lot of time and energy and passion into it, as you'll hear these guys talk about. We're not particularly well rehearsed. We're not rehearsed at all, let me be honest. But these guys are so eloquent and excited, and they'll do a great job. We're just going to kind of bounce back and forth and let each of them kind of give you the picture of how things happen in their schools, because I think what you'll see is the spirit and the content of what we do is the same in all the buildings, but the way that it's brought to life varies from building to building.
And really, reading is a new skill for Homo sapiens. It's only 6,000 years old. No, truly, that's true. And we do not have the wiring in our brain to read. We have the wiring in our brain to react to things. We have the wiring in our brain to learn language, but we do not have the wiring in our brain to learn to read. And so it is a specific skill that needs to be taught. And this is how we do it.
So overall, we have some big goals that we identified. There's probably a whole bunch more that we could have added, but I mean, fundamentally at the top, it's about teaching kids to love reading, and that's the thing that these three are so great at bringing back to the forefront all the time. It's fundamentally kids have to love to read, and they have to feel that joy. And a lot of it is about developing their identities as readers, making sure that students can not only decode but also comprehend and think critically and discuss those things that they read, moving from I can take this symbolic thing on a page and turn it into a word to turning it into meaning and thought, right? So that progression for kids. And that once they have those skills, that those are transferable to any text they encounter at any point, and ultimately they become more and more independent as they move through our system. All right, I'm going to let you guys talk about balanced literacy.
Matt, do you recognize anyone?
Little peanut.
So balanced literacy is really taking these components and then engaging kids in them. So our focus is within vocabulary development, a lot of focus on comprehension, both with fiction and informational text, and understanding what you read. Reading is meaning, and how kids can do that with as they progress and text gets harder. Being accurate readers and breaking the code and being able to decode complex words. Being fluent readers, and then writing about reading, and being able to show your thinking in writing as after you read.
I think part of what's challenging as educators is there's a lot of jargon in this field, as there are in many fields, but I think balanced literacy is one of those things that they throw that term around, and it's kind of hard to define. So we did find this graphic, which we all kind of liked because it gets at those big 5 areas, but then it shows you how reading doesn't just mean reading. It's all these different ways that we engage kids with reading. And word study is its own thing, but there's so many components to that, whether it's phonics or spelling or grammar, that there's different elements that play into it, that we work on all of these things at different times.
We want those skills to transfer from phonics to reading to writing, so if you have a really strong balanced literacy program, that work is not all done segregated, it's all kind of done together, and the goal is that we're able to use all of those skills across the different places. And we've really focused on assessment. It's been a really big focus for the last couple of years for sure, and that we're really looking at our students, and we're data walls, and we're looking at what they're doing, and not only just they're not a level, but what's underneath that level, what's driving that level. Are they good here? Are they good here? So that's been a huge focus for the last couple of years. That's really. We have very busy classrooms because all these things are going on, and we're trying to meet the needs of our students, and they're at different places, and so doing a lot of full group, small group, individualized instruction. And then as interventionists, we're kind of looking at more complex kids and thinking, how do we help you? How do we help you kind of crack that code and feel more successful in reading?
And I think what's great is we all believe in early intervention, so I would never teach a different grade level, because when we look at listening and speaking, there are studies that show that kids start to begin to hear and not understand language, but hear voices when they're in the womb. And so that piece is so important. So really, if a child is struggling, the earlier that you can intervene, the better. So we have, data starting in pre-K, and we can really fine tune our instruction all the way through. And I think we're at the advantage of having the kids for 5 years, and we can kind of look at the big picture. So we might be nervous in pre-K, but what we're seeing is as the kids get the intervention, the early intervention, if we can really target that intervention and give them as much as we can early on, then much less is needed later on. So.
In our classrooms, I think our classrooms are very literacy-based and very, very rich. So our teachers every day in their rooms, there's so much going on from pre-K right to fifth grade, where the teachers are really working on all of these things and knowing that this is where it's happening now. It's not happening at home as much as it used to. The kids aren't coming with what they did previously. So it is on the teachers, and the teachers are really working together, collaborating as teams, looking how can we meet all of our kids, how can we meet these kids in this new society that they're in today. So we have amazing teachers that are doing a lot of really great work along side by side with interventionists, which is awesome.
So in order to accomplish those things, we use a variety of structures. And those structures could be, they vary by building, they could vary by grade level, they could vary by teacher, by classroom. I mean, we're always trying to fit the approach to the kids at that moment, right? So I'll let you guys say a little bit about sort of structures that you're using and what some of these things mean.
I think we're all doing a little bit of all of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, in Elliott, a flexible grouping, we assess all of our kids and then we take them for an hour literacy block and we move them around based on need. And so I might be teaching in a classroom with another teacher, and we have kindergartners from all 4 of the kindergartens in one classroom based on their need. So for instance, we've done an assessment and we have 15 kids who have all their letters and sounds in September, and we have 18 kids who don't have any letters or sounds. So then we kind of break them apart. And then we target our instruction to work on their needs. And the workshop model, conversely, in first grade, we have something similar where we have kids who know all their letters and sounds and they're pre-readers, and then we have kids who are already reading. They're really going. So one of our flex groups runs the workshop model. In all of the classrooms, we're doing guided reading in small groups. We're all conferencing, we're all talking to kids about the teaching points or what they need support with so they can move forward. And we're doing that in all of the schools. You guys can talk about it.
Well, the workshop model, just because that could sound like, what are you doing in a workshop model in a reading classroom? But it's where the teacher's giving direct instruction in a mini lesson, or usually around 10 minutes, just as much as the kid can sit and pay attention and focus. And then breaking out into kind of practice time, and that could be where the teacher's pulling small groups. The students could be working independently, reading and writing about their text. Or running some kind of book clubs where kids are running discussions amongst themselves, especially as in 4th and 5th grade when they're more independent. And then at the end of the workshop, pulling it all together, kind of going over that teaching point again, getting kids to be able to share how they use that strategy or skill in their independent reading or within their small group, and starting it all over the next day, kind of just having that practice time and teacher time, direct instruction, and then using it independently.
Yeah. And then being able to talk about it and part of that share where they can really talk about the strategies that they're using, and there's so much growth that comes from that whole conversation piece. So,
and workshops are usually set up around like an intense genre study, and kids are studying historical fiction and doing historical fiction book clubs, or an informational unit, and like 4th grade's some of the classes are about to start an informational unit in like natural disasters and extreme weather, and so they'll work on informational strategies through the vehicle of learning about volcanoes and tsunamis and things that are highly engaging, and then get to show what they knew through a project and have them come in some research-based collaborative groups. So lots of fun stuff, just kind of keep them interested and keep them wanting to read and asking for more books and just giving it to them.
So one of the things that I think we do very well is that, so what we just described is like that's like the foundation for how we think about teaching reading, right? But that goes hand in hand with intervening, because as Joe said, the earlier we intervene, the better. Hopefully the less intervention that will be required if we intervene early. So one of the things we've worked really hard on with your support over the last couple of years is building a very robust system of interventions at the K-5 level. And what I am really pleased about now is I'm seeing those lines starting to blur, where I think the previous conception was, well, there was the classroom work and then there was intervention, and now I feel like there's a lot more collaboration happening between the interventionists and the classroom teachers in the interest of kids, and I think that's a really positive move. So there's a whole bunch of different interventions that we use, and I'm going to let these guys again talk through a little bit of what some of those things are. And then the last thing up there is the summer reading, which is kind of an offshoot of this whole conversation. We'll move there. You guys want to talk a little bit about intervention?
In our school, we definitely use a combination of pull-out. So some kids pull out, and pull-out is so good for some kids. They need that quiet break outside of a classroom where they have that small group and quiet, targeted space. And then we also do some pushing. I push in third grade, and I also push in first grade every morning. So when I'm in third grade, I can be working with the kids that are in my intervention group, but I can also kind of have post on what's going on in the whole class. So it's been super helpful for us. We definitely do a combination. I definitely do a combination of that in my school, I think.
Yeah, we I push into fourth grade to do flex, where we have 3 or 4 adults in a room and kids rotating through those adult-led groups, so that those are the kids who are like a little bit struggling, and we're trying to boost them up, but those getting as much teacher time as possible to kind of lead them in that direction, so they're not kind of rolling around on the floor like, oh, I'm not reading my book right now, that pretend reading that kids can do. And having the push-in really helps for that. And then a lot of times with 5th grade, we pull them out and have kind of 30 to 60 minutes a week where we're working on writing about reading with them in a small, quiet space. We've also done a lot of work with incorporating motor breaks and the motor learning into our literacy blocks, and just thinking about what the brain needs to be focused, and kind of supporting our teachers with that knowledge as well, and crossing midline and being able to really strengthen your eye tracking, and having kids understand that and empower them that understanding how your brain works and what your brain needs can help you be a better learner, and kind of just doing physical activity or calming yourself and strengthening your core. All of this helps and makes you a more successful student. And so that's been, I think, the last few years a big initiative of getting our teachers to understand that, which they know, but taking the time, saying it's okay during literacy to take this 3-minute break and everybody's crossing midline and building that connection between their left and the right side of their brain, so they can be a more successful reader and writer. Do you have any questions about that?
So a couple of years ago, we came to you and said, we need to do some summer reading for our kids. It was one part of a sort of multi-pronged strategy to address groups of kids we were really concerned about. And so we're happy to say we successfully ran 2 years of summer reading now. And the goal of the Boost program is just to kind of provide that late summer jumpstart for kids, for our struggling readers, so that they're ready for school, ready to read, and hopefully to mitigate any summer slide that they might have experienced. And most importantly, again, to have fun, because sometimes our most struggling readers are also our most reluctant students, and the ones that maybe don't feel as connected to school or as excited about school. So we really wanted to keep the summer program fun and upbeat, and I think we've succeeded in that, thanks to these guys. So this year, summer reading really looked a lot like last summer. It was just a little bit bigger. So last summer, the first year, we had about 53, 54 students, I think. This year we upped that number. We included some additional kids, and we offered it to kids moving on into 6th grade, and we also opened it up to some of our younger students as well. So we invited, I don't know exactly how many we invited, but we had 73 confirmed students that said, yes, we're coming. It turned out only 69 of them came. That happens every year. You get a couple that say, yes, we're coming, and they don't actually come. Based on feedback from parents after year one, we didn't really change much at all about the program. They really had told us 12 days is the right number of days. Like, don't make it longer. Don't make the days longer or shorter. They seemed to like the way it was structured. Keep doing the things you're doing, like providing bus transportation and feeding the kids. And so attendance was pretty good this year. We really tried to stress that in the sign-up process. Like, do not commit to coming if you're not going to be there. It's only a 12-day program. You know, we don't want to sort of take up a slot if you're not going to actually utilize it. And people were really good about it, I thought. And we did have some families who we kind of put on a wait list on the side who knew that they could only be there for 2 of the 3 weeks. We did end up having room for them, so it was fine. But again, if you're not, it's only 60 hours, it's 12 days. So if you're gonna miss too much, it's probably gonna impact the effectiveness. But the good news was about 90% of the students who attended Boost either maintained or accelerated their reading. So that was great. And of those who didn't, there was a small number who didn't. There were a couple that were special education students and or didn't attend regularly. They were the ones that had more absences. So something to keep working on. I think one of the things that we felt after year one was that we wanted to broaden the umbrella a little bit and open up the program to more students and try to serve a broader population. And we did that, and I think by and large it was effective. I think looking at the data, there were a couple kids who came who it was fine that they were there, but it was probably not the best fit for them in terms of what they needed, and maybe we can do a little better with some of that as we continue to reflect and move forward thinking about next year. Some pictures from this summer. So we did survey the parents. I'll just share a little bit of the survey data. It was really similar. I pulled out the first year and this year's and put them side by side, and it was very, very similar. You can see something like almost 90%. It's like 80, I can't read it. 96% of parents felt like Boost was effective and positive for their child. A very similar number, looks like 92%, felt their child enjoyed attending the program, which was a major goal for us. This year also, 79% said transportation was key, 69% felt having food provided was important, 92% felt the program was the right number of days, and 85% felt like the length of the day was perfect. So very similar feedback to the first year. They think the design is good. We could do more if we had more time, but our fear is if we lengthen the program, then they wouldn't come because it would be too much of an impact on summer. So we're just trying to strike that balance. But, I did write down a couple parent comments. These were from the survey. So, look at those. My son loved getting up every morning for Boost with a big smile. So the big change for us this summer was that we were able to have our student teachers with us, which was awesome. The MEF had given us a grant to hire some students, and we also advertised it school-wide. We were able to get some student volunteers as well that worked for their community service. And Hannah and Trevor are here tonight. Give them a wave. So these two are a couple of our student rock stars from this summer. We have dubbed Trevor the King of Recess. And I would like for you guys to just talk a little bit about your experience. How was it for you? What did you learn?
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
I've done it for 2 years now, and I love it. It's so fun to watch kids come in with the tools they have and then leave with how much they've gotten out of it, and it's just fun to know that I've made a difference in their lives of either giving them confidence or more skills, and it's just a privilege to work with kids, know they're learning something. I also love who I work with. I work with my mom this summer. And I got a free lunch every day. But no, I love working with the kids and knowing that they're going to come out with confidence and know that they do have the skills and they can do it.
And Trevor, they love you.
Thank you.
They are still talking about you.
Well, I really love going, like, I didn't really know what to expect, but I was able to like go and volunteer and teach the kids. And well, I want to be a teacher, so like I went there to like gain more confidence. And they like, it was so much fun for them, and they really like, I don't know, they gained so much confidence over the summer, and it was a lot of fun. And really,
She was amazing. We had her. And the thing that's so nice, Hannah's now interning in our school, so we have from the summer now she's working with kids, continues to work with kids in our school. And I know Trevor's done the same thing, spent lots of time, so we're thrilled. Yeah.
I mean, the bigger goal for me is to build the next generation of teachers, and you know, these two right here are prime examples of people that will make great teachers, and you know, the more opportunities we can give them to engage with our little ones, the better. And they just so fun to watch the younger children interact with the high school kids, and just they just treat them a little differently. They're so happy that they're there, and you know, following them around, and very engaged with the students. So it was just I thought it was a huge blessing to have as many high school students as we did there this summer. We'll definitely do that again. And so we also surveyed the kids, because I had some goals around, like I said, you know, encouraging kids to consider teaching and giving them that experience of like, hey, I think I want to be a teacher, or like, maybe not after that experience, or maybe I do. And so this is just a few quotes I pulled from the survey that the kids took.
And you also mentioned just the importance of also having kids kind of go through the interview process, so what it's like to prepare for an interview, the questions you might be asked, how do you sell yourself to a possible employer, so those kinds of life skills are really important, which is all kind of part of the process.
Yeah, we did the whole process. We had five spots available for kids that were paid spots based on the grant. And we had 20 kids apply. So there was a formal application process that we went through. It had a couple of essay questions, and they could indicate whether they wanted to be paid or whether they wanted to get community service hours. Either was fine. And of the students that said they wanted to be paid, we interviewed students, and Pam helped me do those interviews, which was great. And it was not easy to choose the kids. We agonized over it, but felt really good about the students that we had, and grateful to be able to also bring in all of the kids that wanted to get their community service hours. And we had we had 2 kids per classroom, which when you think about what our reading specialists have described around the way that kids move through that workshop model, or those centers for literacy instruction, one of the things we've learned is that our struggling readers don't do as well as our more advanced readers with independent time. They tend to need a little more focus, they need a little more one-on-one support. So having our high school students there to be those extra hands and quizzing kids on their sight words, or doing a phonics drill or a phonemic drill with them, is amazing, because it's less time for them to be contemplating the ceiling tiles while they're waiting for, you know, a different reading group to work with the teachers.
And the kids all came for a training day. Summer beforehand. So.
It was a good team. So I believe that that is it, yes. Do you guys have any questions for any of us?
Incredible.
Seems great.
So you're obviously planning on doing it again this summer?
As long as you want us to.
Well, I think we'd be crazy not to want to.
Right.
That was a budget question, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think we can handle it.
Yeah. Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
And really, we would love to have any one of you, every single one of you in our schools at any time. To come see the process. It's pretty amazing.
Awesome.
A little busy. Busy, but fun.
Yeah. Well, it's really great work, so
Thanks.
thanks for
letting us
coming
share.
and reporting.
Thank you.
on it.
And thank you for Heidi's leadership. I mean, she's done a
Absolutely.
tremendous amount of work of
Yes.
coordinating everything and putting this together and meeting and be able to, to think ahead of just, how do we grow the program? Yeah, absolutely, but you do a great job, so.
I have one question. Are you starting to see the impact of this on those like standardized testing things that they're doing?
Yeah.
So remember at one point we had, 30% of our kids that weren't up to the
Right.
level.
Or an intervention or
Yeah,
whatever.
so what we're trying to do, and I think I'm presenting on data in a couple weeks.
Yes.
But what we're trying to do is look at standardized test data as well as internal data and do kind of a triangulation approach to really look at, are all of our indicators telling us the same story about kids? So I'll share some of that with you in a couple weeks.
We're starting to have the same test
Perfect.
over a number of years, so it makes it a little bit easier to start to be
Yeah.
able to find the strengths and
Yeah, we're
weaknesses.
4 years in on this particular test.
Yep,
So-
which is great.
Yeah, you gotta look at it a bunch of different ways, which I'll share with you when I do the data presentation. But you look at the trends year to year to year. You look at the cohort of kids as they move through, because sometimes there's differences in that. But
Thank you.
Thank you so much for
Thank you
coming.
all.
You're welcome to stay, but if you'd like to go home to your, that's okay too. We completely understand. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
The next topic on the agenda is a summary of a meeting that Tony and I were asked to attend on the 28th of October, where the town of Rollinsford asked us to attend a public forum discussing the possibility of the next year's sixth grade attending Marshall Middle School, which would be a significant change. And so really, this is a decision that they need to make. There was a little bit of confusion, I think, in the audience that last year during their budget process, there was a referendum on their ballot asking to be able to make that decision to bring the sixth graders earlier. That was voted upon and it won by about 75%, but there was not money attached to that item. And so it was really kind of a vote to say, hey, yes, we'd like to do it, but there was no money to support it. So it just kind of was out there. And so I think there were some people in the audience who really wanted some action because of that. And so our role to be there was really to answer questions they might have, just to make it very clear that this is their decision. We want to be good neighbors, but at the same time, if the sixth graders would like to attend, we'd love to have them as part of the contract. But they've got some work that they need to do to kind of figure out where they're going to go. And in my summary, there's 3 possible outcomes. One outcome would be that the school committee doesn't do anything as far as the 6th grade coming to Marshall Middle School, and they would leave things status quo, and we continue with the 7th through 12th piece. That would be one decision. The other decision would be that they would say, yes, we want to do that, and they would attach a dollar figure to that, and by their estimates, it's about, $250,000 additional cost to do that, roughly. They gave us some broad numbers. And so if they wanted to do that, they would have to include that in the budget to be voted upon by the community. And then the last option, it seemed the community could do another budget referendum, but this time attach money to it to say that if this is approved, then we would attach the $250,000 to that to be able to allocate that money to pay for it. So that's kind of their decision. We were really good listeners. It was nice. We had parents speak. We actually had 3 former Marshall Middle School and current Marshall High School students speak a little bit on kind of their thoughts on the process. I thought that Bob Gadomski did a very nice job of just really saying, basically, there's really no bad choice here. The strengths and weaknesses for everything, and kind of this is really, we're in a good place because no matter what, our kids are going to be okay. But it was a very good conversation. So we were just really good listeners. So I don't know if you have any questions, but that's kind of where we are right now. We'll know, typically by March is when they have their vote.
Was your sense of the room that most people are in favor of sending their 6th
I think it's a little split. I think that the sense from the board was that they weren't ready to do it, but the room seemed, the representation that was there was ready to do it. I think
Yeah.
one of the concerns that they had was that of the 23 current 5th grade children, only 4 parents were present. And so was the voice of those 4 parents really the voice of
Right.
the other 23? So I think the challenge would be, will they get the people to go to the next board meeting, which is what they really encourage, so they can kind of get that feedback. So I think it's a tough balancing act right now, I think, for them. So, any other questions about that? Okay, so we're kind of in a holding pattern. We'll provide information as they need it, and as I said, we're being good neighbors, and made it very clear that we would love to have them. That ultimately would be the goal, and we have plenty of space, and there's a lot of great pluses to make that happen. So. The next is an announcement regarding our football coach and retired teacher Alex Rotzko. He was nominated and received the Maine Football Federation of High Schools, I believe, Football Coach of the Year. And with winning that, he goes on to the next region. And so each state kind of has their own representative, and then it goes on to the Northeast region, and be elected at that point when one coach would come out of the Northeast to be the National Coach of the Year. This happened a few years ago for Coach Matt Ricks, and so he went through the same process. So just a great compliment to Coach Rotzko.
Absolutely.
I've known Alex since 1990, and so just really a great testament to the way he does things and the ordered approach. I just think even from an instructional standpoint, the amount of time those kids spend on a computer studying what the other team does, breaking down statistics of what they do, it's just, there's so much more that goes into it than I think you would probably imagine. So he does a great job with that. So congratulations, Alex.
Absolutely.
Well, yesterday I got a really nice text, which was nice to get. And the text was from Chris Glidden, and Chris Glidden, for those of you who don't know, was a former owner of about 5 or 6 different Planet Fitnesses in Maine and Florida. And he contacted us to say, basically he's sold his businesses, but he has a few pieces of equipment left that he'd like to donate to us. And so he wanted to donate a treadmill, and then they have like a tower station, which is really a station where people can do kind of some resistance training on, so it kind of gets away from the basic weight training. It's more bands and body weight types of things, and he wanted to donate that. And so the value of those 2 things is about $15,000 if you were to buy those things outright. So when that call came, we acted very quickly and said, sure, let me get this on our agenda to see if it could be accepted, but we'll vote on that in the second part of the agenda. But just a great opportunity, and we're just very thankful for Chris. He also, which I thought was wonderful, had said that he will contact the other area Planet Fitnesses, because he still has connections, and we're looking for some cardiovascular equipment. And so our wellness center has kind of more of a traditional weight training, resistance training room, and then there's also kind of a cardiovascular room, and our cardiovascular equipment is in a little bit tough shape. And so Chris said he thought he could be able to help us out with that as well, kind of down the road, which was very nice to hear. So, yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, very nice. Any questions about that? We can vote on that in a little bit. Student report, Katie.
Yeah, so Sydney's not here, so I'm going to do her report too.
Including sports.
Yeah. But,
Yes.
So last Saturday at Sanford, the marching band earned a silver at a state competition. They performed Grim Tales, which I don't know what that is, but that's the song that they performed. So the band always does so well at like basically everything that they do. So congratulations to them. Also, I know I've talked about peer tutoring a little bit, but it is up and running, and it is fully student run by Sydney Bingham. About 2 years ago, peer tutoring was introduced by McKenna and Will, but then last year, no one really took it on because it was supposed to be sort of a student-run program, but this year Sydney took it on, and so many students have signed up to not only be tutors, but a lot of kids have signed up to be the tutees, and so there's so many pairs during study halls who are always working And it's such a great way for kids to get community service and for kids to do better in a subject or multiple subjects. So that's up and running, and that's doing really well this year. The math team, they came in second at their meet, which was last Wednesday, and I don't think there's no nobles this year. But I think their next meet is on December 4th, so hopefully they do well there. And then there's the blood drive, which is November 14th. That's a Thursday. It's from 1 to 6 in the high school gym. So Interact is working with Mrs. Roberts, the nurse, who's working with Red Cross, to try to get some donors. Interact is also working this week and next week to try to get some more student donors, because if you're 17 and up, you can donate blood, and if you're 16, you can donate as long as you get parents' permission. So sometimes we struggle to get student donors, but we're going to be at lunches and kids can sign up, so, and obviously adults can too, so if anybody wants to go donate blood, that's next Thursday.
There's an online sign up for that, right? You can just find the
I think there is.
the donation
Yeah.
site and sign up, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then if there's not, and if you know someone,
Yeah, I
or
think
if
the
you
Red
want
Cross
to,
does it
then
through-
I can talk to Mrs. Roberts, because
Okay.
I'll be at lunches and stuff.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And so then there's Sydney's report. So most of the fall sports are coming to an end. Last Saturday, the girls cross country team came in 6th place overall at the state meet, and Addie Fuller qualified for New England's, and she's the first freshman in Marshwood's history to do so. And she will be running at New England's this Saturday in Manchester, Connecticut. And I think that she's the only person on the team who's going to New England's, so that's really cool. Volleyball season ended after their second playoff game, which is the furthest that any Marshwood volleyball team has ever made it. I think that they upset Chevrolet. I think it was Chevrolet. They upset Chevrolet in their first playoff game, which was great because they'd never won a playoff game before. But then they played Falmouth, who is the defending state champions, and they did lose. But they had a good season. They had a really good season this year. The boys' soccer season ended in the quarterfinals versus Scarborough. They lost 1-0, that one was really sad because the whole school was very excited for soccer to go far. But
Yes, Scarborough kids were off.
yeah. And then the girls' team, we lost in prelims versus Noble. We lost 3-2, like a week and a half ago. So yeah. Football, they won against Gorham last Friday, and so they're advancing to the semifinals versus South Portland on Friday at home at 6. So that should be a good game, I guess. And that's the sports report. Next up is the district play. Okay, so the district play is having their preview day on next Wednesday, and the 3rd graders and the high schoolers are going to be coming up to watch, and so we'll get a little sneak peek at the play, which is Mary Poppins this year. And the shows this year are the 15th and the 16th, and then the 22nd and the 23rd, and that's Friday, Saturday dates of November, so that should be fun. And then the last thing is the Trick or Treat for Cans. So Interact does Trick or Treat for Cans every year, which is where we all meet at one house in Agamenicus, and there's a big group of us, and we split up into smaller groups, and we go around each loop. Each group goes around each loop, and we collect cans. The day before, we always put a notice on people's mailboxes so that they know, and so that they're not surprised that we're coming and we're asking for cans and not candy. And so then we go around and we collect it, we bring it all back to the house, and then someone from the Southborough Food Pantry and Rotary came with their truck to collect it all, and we filled the whole bed of the truck all up with cans. And it was at my house because I live in Aggie, and there was a big table in my garage, and like half the cans could fit on the table, the other half were just like kind of scattered everywhere just because there were so many.
Wow, that's great.
And so that's always kind of our biggest way to collect cans, because other than the pep rally this year, we don't really get a lot of participation from high schoolers in the can drive, so that was really great that we were able to get a lot of donations. And yeah, so that's it.
Thanks, Katie.
Sounds busy.
Yeah, that was 2 reports, because
So I just have one other, under the other category I wanted to share. This afternoon at about 4:15, I received a phone call from Nina regarding a parent report that was made to the Southborough Police Department, in which a parent reported that a person picking up their children was seen to have a holster, and possibly a gun in that holster when they're picking up some children. We assume that it was a parent. There was no issue during the pickup, but obviously it's disheartening and obviously against the law if that were to be the case. Southborough Police Department was contacted. Nina did a fantastic job of working with Lieutenant Burbank. He and I and Nina were in communication. They released a statement saying what has occurred. It's an investigation. If there's any other information available, please let us know. And in addition, hey, as a reminder, you can't have firearms in school property. It's the state and federal law. So.
Was it Central School?
At Central School, yeah. So again, we don't know whether what the details were. We don't know who it was. We assume it was just a parent picking up a child, but again, we don't know that at this point in time. So, so if anybody knows anything, the police department is asking that they contact them, and just so we can move forward. But we did let parents know. Nina sent out a nice email to parents just to let them know this is what's happened, that their kids are all safe, and the police department's involved and shared the kind of police release with everybody. But just wanted to let everybody know that did occur, and we just wanted to be ahead of it rather than not talking about it. We wanted to make sure people were aware that we were on top of it, and if they had any information, let us know. So, Nina, did I miss anything?
No, I think that's perfect.
Okay.
They're investigating, trying to figure it out.
Yeah. So, thank you. And that concludes my report.
Awesome, thank you, John. The next thing on the agenda is we got a very nice thank you letter from the Jimmy Fund. Dr. Nash's sister passed away back in September, and the district made a donation to the Jimmy Fund in Eileen's honor. So that's what that was for. So next is the report of the committees. In Finance and Facilities, we're meeting at 6:30 here on the 20th. And then Ed Policy did meet. I'm the only one here. So Lisa and Paul were also there. We do not have any policies that are coming for a first read tonight. We're currently working on revising the drug and alcohol use policy and the procedures at the high school. And so that's been taking up some of our time. There's also a subcommittee that's been formed to discuss that, looking at different other high school policies and trying to put together what makes the most sense for Marshwood. And then we also talked a little bit about advertising in the schools policy. Back to the drug one. They're going to take it to Student Gov to find out what they thought of it. And there was one other piece to that. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting. It was two.
Taking it to the student government at the middle school as well.
Yeah.
And then getting some clarity around the reintegration plan.
That was it.
So that
was it. Talking to the social workers.
Correct.
About a potential reintegration plan. If it happens that a student is caught with drugs or alcohol during the season, doing something different than just suspending for 10 weeks.
Trying to have a little bit more of a growth mindset around it rather than being punitive. So,
yeah.
So overdue.
Yeah. So I think one of the big things is getting rid of the in the presence of, and which has always been a tough one anyways. And then also, like as John said, making it less punitive and making it more of a learning experience and actually maybe trying to fit what the student needs to be able to come back.
I'm so glad you guys are doing that.
Yeah, so it's in progress. I don't know how long it'll be, but we want to get it right, so it may be a bit. And then, yeah, and then the other one kind of came up, the last meeting we had, that girls' basketball had come about the scorers table
Mhm.
and the chairs, and we approved that. And after that meeting, later in the week, John had some great thoughts about them, because that scorers table has advertising on it, and I think one of the thoughts of the girls' basketball team was to sell that advertising over time to kind of make up for the payment, or, help with the payment of the table. And so there's a little concern about that, and so John had the idea that the enterprise fund could buy the table, the athletic enterprise fund could buy the table, and they could buy the chairs. And then the district will have the control and the policy and everything over that advertising. And it will also make the table maybe a little more accessible.
Yes, absolutely.
For all sports, even though it was going to be that way anyways. When one sport buys it,
Yeah.
it doesn't have the same feel.
Yeah, and I think
guess
from a Title IX
some-
perspective, it just concerned me also that the
Yeah,
girls' basketball
girls'
program was
basketball.
going to spend $7,000 on this table, and everybody else was going to
And
use it.
everybody else
So
was gonna use
It could be
it.
a little bit more equitable to be able just to purchase it, and
Yeah.
then we can kind of control how that works.
Right.
Yeah.
So as a piggyback to that, we're re-looking at the advertising in the schools policy so that there's a clear around that. And still, you were still talking about maybe having income from those
Yeah,
ads
absolutely.
going to the specific teams, but just having that under the, they would have to be under
Yeah.
the policy of this,
Mhm.
of the school, and a little more control, not taking away the revenue options
Yeah.
of the fundraising
Right.
options, but just having a little more control. And the Title IX piece was huge
Yeah.
as well.
And I think kind of keep in mind when we do that, of just like what's the advertising look like, because it can be as small as having an ad for Southborough Pharmacy, let's say, in a program, to as big as having a scoreboard where it's saying trying to sell Aquafina water,
Right.
And so I think one of the ideas is that we create a policy that makes sense, that kind of conforms to the rules, because there are some clear rules around
Who can advertise?
Who can advertise? We can't advertise like foods that we're not allowed to serve in schools, but then also trying to find a way that's equitable to do that. So something similar to how we handle the fundraising is kind of the thought process originally, and Rich Buzzle is going to do some work with that. But we also would want to have the ability, if we ever had the opportunity, to create some revenue that we could still do as a district to be able to pay for like a big project if they wanted to do that, which is how Biddeford did
Yep.
that a few years ago when they put a new field in, and Cape Elizabeth has Hannaford Field, which was donated. So we just want to find out the legality of that. So Ryan did some great work with Greg
Yeah.
Yam.
Naming rights.
Yeah.
So, but that's down the road. But we just want
Yeah.
to make sure as we enter this, because it just, as you flip over one rock, obviously, 5 others, raise themselves up. And so I think we're in a pretty good place. As I said, Rich will do some work with that. We do have the most recent law around that, so we will change the policy accordingly. But that will be a big one for us.
Yeah, the law, the most recent policy obviously has added some stiffer controls about the smart snacks, things that we can sell. Obviously, we can't advertise like Pepsi or, things we can't sell in school. Yeah, and then also, not being able to advertise tobacco products, vaping, marijuana, all that. I'm sure you all are real surprised about that, but it's law now.
Yes.
So we are working at policy, but just are in the process of doing some big ones that have to be moved slowly. And Heidi's up with some. She came and we never got to her policy, so we'll be doing affirmative action with her at the next one as well. So we'll probably have something for you next time. All right, so on to new business. May I have a motion to nominate Laura Friedman for the high school?
I move that we nominate Laura Friedman, Marshwood High School Physical Education and Health Teacher, BA 16, $69,483, prorated to date of hire.
Second.
John, can you tell us a little bit about
Sure,
Laura?
absolutely. So Laura would be joining us from Miranda Cook High School, where she currently works. She's had a great experience over the years working at Kents Hill, in York, at Biddeford Middle School. She graduated from the University of Maine with an education kinesiology degree. She's dual certified in both PE and health, which is huge as we kind of we look at our health and wellness program district-wide. The thing that I was really excited about is she has a great strength in curriculum development, and so as we kind of conform to some new laws that came through and kind of look at just making sure, what does health look like, grades, K to 12, she'd be able to give some great insight with that. So that was really exciting for us. And so really excited to join us. So we feel like we're really lucky to find someone of such great quality.
Awesome.
Awesome. All right. All those in favor? Okay. And a motion for the easement for South Berwick Sewer District.
I'll move that we approve vote to convey easement to South Berwick Sewer District be adopted in form presented at this meeting.
Second, sorry.
That's okay. John?
Sure. So this is regarding the work that's being done across the street
Right.
and be able to have access to be able so they can put a sewer system in for that building or those buildings across the street. And so we sent the easement that they sent to us to determine with them to look at. There's some questions on it still at this point in time where just some small minor details we wanted to work out. So basically what we're asking here is that you give me the authority to kind of work out the details with the sewer district to make sure we know that their needs are met, but also the school's needs are met. And so rather than going back and forth with all of the details. So it's just, some of it's more the technicality of the maps and things like that.
It's enlarging an existing easement.
That's
It's
correct.
not that much bigger.
Yeah, and it's not in an area that's used by children, or so there's no real adverse effect
Yeah.
for it. They asked me about that. I said, here's the most important thing for us is the stoplight. And so if this can get us a step closer to having the stoplight in front of the high school, then we
Is
are
that a
on
quid
board.
pro quo, John?
Yeah. I don't know, but that's
It's a very good phone call.
it's a
Perfect.
It was a perfect phone call, though.
But basically, if more people are using across the street and, because of the sewer, then our hope is eventually that we have
Yeah.
the data to support that we can
The
make.
busier it gets over there,
The better it
the
is.
better it is over here.
So this easement is on the road. Is it up by the entrance, or is
Right
it?
by the pump house, if you were to go down, kind of the back end of the stadium field, there's that
Yes,
kind of
yes,
like
yes,
that
yes,
That
yes,
weird
yes.
building.
Got
building.
it, got it, yep.
And
yep.
so literally, it's going to be, probably about another 10 feet beyond that. And they're going to actually have to put a manhole cover in and go down because it's about 14 feet down. And so we're not going to really have any additional structures, but they are going to have to kind of dig
Yep,
up the area
okay.
a little bit to be able to make it all work. So,
And obviously access it if
Seems
there's
reasonable.
any need
problems,
for, yeah.
And we're-
The other piece was the pump station that's there, that they're tying into, was designed with it in mind already.
Oh, cool.
So that there's not like a problem, like, we're not gonna have capacity anymore,
Right,
there's
right.
plenty of capacity at the pump station. So that was the other big thing that we were concerned about.
The other kind of positive that came out of it was when Tom Harmon was here, he kind of talked to us a little bit about kind of like our sewer bill and how we're measuring that right now. And so we may start to look at kind of like where we meter things from, because there's a possibility that with as wet as the back of the school is, that anything that goes down in manhole cover, actually we're getting charged for, so we're getting charged for rainwater as well.
Oh.
So it's not, tens of thousands of dollars, but it is significant, I think, and so over time, we want to look at
So
that
we
to find
might
out.
want to have 2 lanes.
Yeah, kind of move the water or start measuring kind of our usage from a different place.
Gotcha.
And so we are doing some work in the back of the school because of some wetness issues back there, so it might be good timing to do some of that, but it was a positive that kind of came out of that meeting as well.
That's
so.
great.
Yeah. Any questions we could try to answer for you?
I think it makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes
I can
sense.
think of no reasonable objection.
No,
Yeah.
no, just don't sign away half the school.
That's right.
No, just kidding. Just kidding you. All right, all those in favor then? Okay. And then a motion to accept Chris Glidden's very generous donation.
I move we approve the donation of physical fitness wellness equipment from Chris Glidden from Marshwood High School, originally purchased for $15,000.
Awesome. Second?
I'll second that.
All right. And John already explained most of it, because this is not the first time that Chris has done this.
No.
So we have to thank Chris over and over again.
and are bummed that he's sold all his Planet Fitnesses. But congratulations to him for doing that. I look forward to hearing about his next
Yeah,
endeavors.
venture.
He's a good businessman, so. All those in favor? Awesome. Does anyone else before we adjourn, does anybody on the board have anything else?
I want to take 2 minutes, because
Okay.
a couple weeks ago, I had an opportunity to participate in the candidate forum that the Smart
Oh,
Growth
yeah.
South Berwick did. Thank you for helping me
You're
with that
welcome.
question around the civil rights stuff. And it was fun. It was, even though I was running unopposed, I still got some pretty good questions that I had to field. Both of which, or two of which, led ultimately to questions about curriculum that I wasn't able to answer because I'm not as deep into curriculum as any of our teachers would be, for instance. But promised to dig in a little bit more. And I learned later that one of them was referring to an ongoing conversation. This was with regard to teaching climate change in the science curriculum.
Okay.
Yeah, and I found out later that there's already been an email thing going on with that, and Heidi has already provided those interested folks with specific touch points in the, I think it's the middle school curriculum.
Primarily.
Yeah, specific lessons, and which was interesting. The other question was around, it stemmed from a question about bullying in the district's policy and how we do with that, and that led to the discussion of the civil rights training and all that stuff. But there was a specific question about how that reflects back to the curriculum, and specifically with regard to LGBTQ students, which I wasn't able to answer, but I said I would go find out. So, I have questions. That can be an informal conversation at any point. I didn't actually set up a mechanism for responding to those folks, but I would like to get back to them if.
Yeah.
Well, you could definitely use this meeting to,
Okay.
get the information that you need. Heidi, I'm sure, would probably be
Yeah.
the #1 source, and you can just take a few moments to respond to those and answer those questions.
Sure.
And hopefully it will
Excellent.
get out there. Unfortunately, we're no longer covered in the newspaper, so it would be,
That's right, no mark, huh?
no, I guess we don't get enough hits.
Enough clicks.
So we were dropped.
Boring is good. Yeah.
But you definitely could refer, and
Sure.
even on Facebook, right, in the on the South Berwick Bulletin, that those answers are
Yeah.
at the meeting at X minute or whatever, so
That's
if
a great
somebody
idea.
wanted to.
So if it's okay, I'll reach out.
That would be
via
great,
email, we'll
yes.
chat.
Send me
Awesome.
the specific questions
Yeah,
and then we
okay.
can get together on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll do it at the next meeting. Perfect. Well, I'm glad you're still
Or
up.
maybe the meeting after that. I
So
don't wanna be
Blank
under
didn't
too
do
much
as good a job
No,
answering the questions as
Nope,
you did.
nope.
All right.
stumbled a lot.
Yeah, no pressure for next meeting.
Yeah.
Whenever you guys are done. There's
Okay.
the holiday and all that stuff in there
Thank
too,
you.
so. Perfect. Anybody else? No? Anybody out there? Mo?
John already shared about the Veterans Day in Youth Across America, which is an exciting thing. That a couple of weeks ago, one of our students who's now third grade, when she was like little, she got a stuffed penguin, and it's been her best buddy. And she ended up writing a story about this penguin and how that penguin kind of spread kindness around. And she happened through a work connection of her mom's, just told this guy, Miles from, I keep wanting to call him Miles Davis, but that's not right. But Miles from Upside Theater.
Yes.
And he got intrigued, and he created a musical out of her,
Oh, I saw that.
out of her, her story, and so, and they performed it at the Players Ring, and there were all kinds of students from all over that were in this, that one of our current students and one of our previous students performed in the play.
Oh,
I
nice.
went to see it at Players Ring, but then we managed to bring them into school for our whole school assembly, so George's play took life in front of the whole school, which was awesome. It's inspired a lot of great writing. She had her stuffed penguin with her,
Oh,
her
that's
grandmother
great.
knitted her a sweater with a penguin on it, and it was pretty special for just those wonderful ideas that kids have, to see it take life in a new form like that, and have
Yeah.
adults get interested in it. make a production. It was cool.
Miles is wonderful too. He does some really great,
Yeah.
great work.
Yeah, he does. I had not met him before, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Isn't he a Marshwood? He's a Marshwood grad, isn't he? I thought he
I'm
was a
not sure.
Marshwood grad.
He worked in
He
did a
worked
middle
in
school
it?
play.
Oh,
Middle school
okay.
play for-
I know he had some
I think he
connection.
and Alden.
there is some connection.
I think he and Alden
Maybe
did the
it's-
plays together, I
Yes,
think.
at the middle school.
Yeah, at the middle school.
Maybe it's
Yeah.
Alden that I'm thinking.
Yes.
Is he a Marshwood
He
grad?
is Marshwood grad,
Okay,
yes. Yeah.
I'm getting
Yeah.
the two confused
Yeah.
on their
Yeah.
posts.
The little girl that played the lead penguin, I don't know where she goes to school. She's just a third grader, and she just brought the house down with her voice and her lines, her presence on the stage. It was remarkable to see her. Very talented kids in that group.
Thank you.
Nice.
Yeah, well, we had a fantastic Monster Mile that had the rain date of Monday, so it was just incredible, and I just don't even have the words to thank our PTO, because I think they just lived and breathed the Monster Mile for a straight month, and they ended up making over $40,000.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
just crazy. It was crazy, and it was just, the kids had so much fun, and John was there running as Tigger, so it was incredible.
Oh my gosh.
Pre-K
Did you get
students, they
pictures
had
of that?
so
Yeah.
much- Yes.
Oh.
We had a
Could you
photographer.
send me one
We
of
will-
those?
We sent you all the pictures out.
I did not bounce. That's
I would like to see those.
Yes,
Sound
it's a
really cool.
Special day, and the PTO is actually, they're sponsoring some of our professional development with Kathy Collins, but now they're also they're doing a survey for parents to ask their kids what their kids want in school, so it'll be very interesting to see the results of the survey.
Oh,
to see
absolutely.
What the kids are wishing for from their Monster Mile. It was awesome.
That's wonderful.
Wow, that's really
Wonderful.
impressive.
Congratulate them.
Yeah,
That's
they're
great.
a great group of people.
Great. And Jerry, it's great to see
Oh,
you.
thanks.
Looking fabulous.
I'll tell you a story afterwards. About me. But I just wanted to let you know, our fifth graders have been really busy, and we talk about climate change. They've gone, the whole group has gone up to the Gulf of Maine Research Center, and they've been going up for 2 or 3 years, and the teachers are always telling me, Jerry, you gotta go, you gotta go. And so this year, Vicky's been at the school with me, you know, a little bit, so Vicky was there, so I said, I'm going. Unbelievable. It is just, these kids come in, they've got these computer tables that are about the size of these tables, and you get information about the lobster and the black sea bass, and then you're looking at water change, and we were there 2.5 hours, and it went by like that. And kids are being able to look at data and try to figure these things out, and they're shuffling data around. It was impressive. It was, and the kids, they love it because they send down, it doesn't cost us anything. They send down a coach bus, so the kids are watching a movie on the way up. And, you know, because they said to me, you know, Mr. Burnell, we're going to pick a notch on a bus like this. I said, no. And then tomorrow, Janice Morrow, you know, God love her, a couple of years ago, she had some in at Unum in South Portland. And so we took the chorus up, they were invited. And what we really figured would happen would be that, you know, after they did this and was successful, they would probably ask South Portland or Scarborough, they would ask neighboring schools around. Tomorrow morning, we're going again. It's our 3rd year in a row. They just keep coming back to us, and the whole 5th grade group goes up, and it is impressive. I went last year.
That's
and
awesome.
it's a class act, and our kids are awesome. And we talk about the Veteran Assembly, probably 5 or 6 years ago, and I may even told you this story a few years ago. After we have breakfast, after we have the assembly, I had a Vietnam vet come up to me, and just tears down his face. And he goes, I have never felt more welcome back in this country than I have this morning. And I think, you know, we put these assemblies on, and sometimes you don't know the impact it is going to have on those folks sitting in this stands, or in the seats, so it's pretty awesome.
That is awesome. All right. If there's nothing else, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion that we adjourn this meeting.
All right. Is there a second?
Sure, I'll second.
All right. All those in favor?
Thank you, everyone, for
If
coming.
nobody seconds that, you'd have to sit here.
No, it's the best second of the night, I guess.
John, you know the